Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, December 15th, 2025, aka mid-December already. How did that happen? And today we are talking about fertilizers in a couple different ways, like should you fertilize if you mulch and how to decipher those dang fertilizer labels, plus human scale farming. So let's do it. All right, happy Monday, everyone. It is just about as cold as it gets here in Kentucky, hovering around 2 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 16 degrees Celsius right now as I record this. Wasn't a whole lot warmer yesterday. Kids are out of school for the cold, but also the snow that we got this weekend, just as they were on Friday, which honestly is kind of nice, except for it's too cold for them to really do anything like outdoors. It's just very tundra-y. Yeah. Had a decent weekend, though. Hannah and I took a trip up to northern Kentucky / Cincinnati area to celebrate our anniversary a little bit early, which was fun. She's a Liverpool supporter, though, so she had a better overall weekend than I did, though as it should be, I suppose. But not a lot going on around the farm, the snow-covered icicle that is our farm, at least at the moment. This week, the plan is to get the seeds inventoried and start getting the 2026 growing plan nailed down, maybe even some seeds ordered. We'll see. I usually aim to order seeds before the new year. It's an arbitrary goal somewhat, but with seeds starting really beginning in January, it's definitely not super premature. I don't like to be sitting there waiting for seeds to arrive when I actually need to be starting them. So preferably do that. Also want to give a shout out to our friends out in Washington who are suffering from some of the flooding out there. That is wild stuff. So yeah, we're just thinking of you all, hoping you bounce back quickly before the season starts. Such tough stuff. Flooding is just absolutely brutal. So anyway, thoughts go out to you all. Anyway, so we are continuing our mulch series today. I want to talk about fertility management when it comes to mulch. That will be our subject. Is it even necessary? And if so, how in the world would you do it? Well, like in all things in farming, it depends. So let's take a few specific examples and then talk about each one. Let's say that you are mulching with straw. Straw, as you will know, because we talked about it recently, is the stalk of a grain. So basically all the nutrients of the plant are now in the grain itself. So the stalk is mostly just carbon. But fascinatingly, because again, sense does not make science, studies show that straw can not only improve the texture and reduce the density of the soil, increase soil carbon, all the stuff you'd expect it to, and like water holding capacity, hold the soil in place, all those things, but available potassium and phosphorus as well. Those are two nutrients that it can help increase, though nitrogen can decrease slightly in certain scenarios. So to make up for that little bit of lost nitrogen, some studies demonstrate how a little organic fertilizer really brings it all together. Better photosynthetic rates of the plants, more microbial diversity and available nutrients in the soil. All the things when you add just a little bit of fertility. The straw helps to create conditions that are better for nutrient holding, and so a small amount of fertilization goes a much longer way for a much longer period of time. Now, it is less clear for things like hay because it is just not as well studied. The protein retained in the dried grass will result in some amount of nitrogen and other nutrient creation, and the hay will do some things to the carbon, but it's not totally clear how much. Either way, a small amount of organic fertilizers can go a long way here too. You just need to use probably a little bit less than you would for straw mulch. This fertilizer could be added in a liquid form, like via, some sort of fertigation system. Could be added in compost and then applied to the surface before applying more hay or straw mulch. It can also be mixed responsibly and lightly into the holes where the plants will go, as long as you are mindful of not adding too much nitrogen. You don't want just like big leafy green plants with no fruit on them. And my general preference there is to dig a hole, mix in some compost, and then plant the plant. Obviously, use a soil test for some general guidance on amending, like what you're going to add and by how much. Additionally, one could rake the mulch back, whatever mulch is there, apply the fertility, and then remulch it, especially on a smaller scale. Now, if using compost as your mulch, you can simply add the amendments to the compost and then sort of rake it in, or add it to the next round of compost to be applied. If you're using plastic, burlap, or some other physical mulch like that, you may have to apply your fertility through fertigation, through like drip lines, or remove the mulch, add the fertilizer, and then reapply that mulch. Either of those would work. Fertigation like that is a larger topic because good fertigation setup has to be smartly assembled to both work properly and often meet safety guidelines, because if you're using like a fish emulsion, you don't want that to go back up into your lines. Animals, of course, can play a large part as well in certain circumstances, like how we used to run our chickens over areas we use hay. They would eat many of the seeds, which show me another fertilizer that would do that. And they also deposit their own, let's call it fertility. Then we would just mulch right over top of that and replant. Anyway, I guess that's the basics of fertilizing with mulch there. Let me know what else you might like to hear about with that or what else you might say. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, understanding those fertilizer numbers on the preferably organic fertilizer packages, NPK. Sorry, BRB.
Good morning from North Texas. Wanted to show off my first attempt at cover cropping. This is a mixture of oats, peas, mustard, and crimson clover. Like I said, I've never tried cover cropping before. I'm thinking I may have gone a little thick with the application. And then over here, we've got our fall crops. So both red and green cabbages, collards, arugula, and carrots. And we actually just pulled the last of the lettuce out of this bed a week ago.
Today's episode is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Thomas Van Wart, who asks, quote, "Not urgent. I would love to know how to dissect and understand fertilizers. I understand NPK, but I know not all fertilizers are created equal. I assume if I run out of 333, I likely can't just triple the use of a 111, and the origin of the fertilizer, alfalfa or fish or bone meal, matter as well," end quote. All right, so a great wintertime topic here. Fertilizers and the numbers and origins, all that stuff. Love it. A lot to say there. Okay, so when you send off a soil test, depending on where you get that test done, but especially if that place is your local ag extension office, they will likely send you back a recommendation for something like 555 fertilizer. Those numbers are associated with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in that order. NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. They represent the level of those nutrients by weight. And to be clear, organic fertilizers have these numbers too, so I'm not even really at all talking about conventional fertilizers. So what the numbers mean is that if a 1 pound bag of fertilizer is a 10-10-10 fertilizer, it has 10% of each nutrient per pound. So to answer your question, yes, your 1-1 wood could be tripled to make 3-3-3, but you would just need and be using triple the amount of that fertilizer. The one thing to take into consideration there is almost all mixed fertilizers also contain other nutrients. So although maybe you want triple the amount of X nutrients, but then you realize you don't want to triple the amount of, say, sulfur or iron or whatever else it may contain. If that's the case, then maybe you want to go a different direction. Some alternative approaches are to simply piece it all together. Maybe some blood meal for your nitrogen needs, or some rock phosphate or seabird guano or whatever is available for you for your phosphorus needs, and some potassium sulfate for the potassium. That is possible, but it's going to take a little bit more work than probably necessary. The easier and perhaps better approach is to simply buy the closest thing to what you need and use that. Even if it's a little bit off, it's going to be fine as long as it's not over applied. And I should say, especially when it comes to some of those premixed ones that contain other nutrients like sulfur, iron, etc., if you are certified organic, you have to show a deficiency in those nutrients to be able to use that fertilizer. So that's just like an important note if you're thinking about certifying organic or if you are certified organic. Anyway, even if it's a little bit off, it's going to be fine as long as it's not over applied. This is called directional nutrient management, where you are basically pointing the nutrients in the direction that you want the soil to go. A lot of us are dealing with high phosphorus levels from compost though. So if you just skip the premixes for some nitrogen and potassium options, I think that's fine too. Though I do generally recommend running it by an agronomist just to make sure you're not throwing something way off or getting your numbers wrong or whatever. You obviously do not want to over apply some things like nitrogen, or you will get big bushy plants and or dead ones. In terms of origins, well, that is a huge topic. Some of the rock minerals are being overmined and others are still in significant abundance. Rock phosphate is one that gets a lot of attention, as some researchers have suggested we could run out of it in like 50 years, though others contend it could be much longer, but it is finite and it will run out eventually. So minimizing our usage of those minerals is generally a good idea. For that reason, there's also a lot of work being poured into reclaiming phosphorus. And of course, compost can be our entire phosphorus on most of our scales, at least in the small scale world. Then you have, the fish and blood and feather meals that come largely from factory farms and factory meat processing. It's kind of reclaiming a waste and doing better by those animals, but it's also, giving those companies more revenue. So pick your poison there, I suppose. I've mentioned this before, but there is also this bizarre relationship or connection between farming and waste management that I've never been able to fully articulate, but I think some percentage of it is just that there is a profound amount of waste in the world, waste that we can turn into more food. And I think instead of treating that like a negative, treating it like an opportunity is important to our survival and thrival, which my autocorrect suggests is not a word, but I suggest it should be. Anyway, did I answer the question? I think so, but I'm happy to do more on this particular subject. Just let me know what I missed or maybe got wrong or got incomplete. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll only take on as much as humans can handle. Interesting. Be right back.
Hello, Growers Daily. Ever wonder what you can do with your pruned branches? I built a hugelkultur bed. Growing cover crop right now.
Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTIL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. Human scale farming. A few years back, I started seeing this term, human scale farming, pop up more and more. And I think it's interesting, and I also think it's easy to misunderstand. To back up a little bit, the idea with human scale farming is that you are building a farm that is not overly mechanized, but that can be maintained and managed by humans. I'm going to quote from Daniel Mays' excellent book, The No-Till Organic Vegetable Farm, quote, "Human scale refers to tools, practices, enterprises, and organizations that are sized for human use, satisfaction, and comprehension. When the farm is sized to celebrate the fulfilling nature of human work, the work itself benefits from the increased care that this scale affords. Human scale honors work as craft instead of monotony, and it implies a minimum of machinery." In his ever-relevant book, Small is Beautiful, economist E.F. Schumacher writes about the difference between a tool and a machine, the former being an extension of the worker's hand and a positive influence on his creative ability, and the latter offering a mechanical replacement for the essential human part of the work, end quote. Now, I think where this idea of human scale gets confused is that it can't also be productive or profitable. It can, and in some ways it could be essential to it, especially on a small scale. On the productive side, an acre of land can be intensively managed, profitably so, with about 3 people. This is also Daniel's calculus with the person to acreage ratio, but in my years of farming, it seems to be pretty common ratio where a lot of food can be grown in a small space, and that's about the number of people it takes to manage that space, give or take, depending on what you grow, and when you have the right methods and the right people managing it. Moreover, the other capitals come into play as well when you think at a human scale. With more people on the land, there are more jobs and more money goes into the local economy. Community is generated from the farm. Health and wealth is as well. Human scale does not mean no tractors necessarily. It means that the work the tractors do are to add efficiency and enjoyment, not replace the work of humans. Making and then hauling compost in wheelbarrows, for instance, it's fun for a while, sure, but if you had to cover, 3 or 4 acres with compost by hand, turning the pile and then filling every barrow yourself and then hauling it out to the field, that would burn you out. And it would reduce your ability as a farm owner to be profitable. Finding workers would be hard as well. I don't know many people who are going to get excited about that particular job. So perhaps the tractor and or the walk-behind tractor help to ease that burden a little bit. but not entirely replace the work itself. Anyway, it's fine line, of course, but that balance between machinery, tools, and workers. Think of it as the tools you get, if they should break down at the wrong time, should not devastate the day or the season. That, to me, is a good barometer for what constitutes human scale. Anyway, what does this idea mean to you? Does it mean anything? Does it resonate? Let me know. Otherwise, we're going to call it a Monday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible. Greatly appreciate it, and it's the end of the year, so you're into your tax breaks. You can do that. Just learn more in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and/or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and also my wife Hannah for everything in the world, absolutely everything. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you sign up in the month of December, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to John, Renee, Dan, and Andrew, say my darn name, Bunker Alien Hofbauer. That was an interesting name that your parents gave you there, Andrew, but I don't judge names. All right, so this week's story is going to be about a teacher named Mr. Lakes. Now, Mr. Lakes was a middle school biology teacher, bless his heart, because his favorite thing in the world was plants, loved plants, wanted everyone to love plants as much as he loved plants. And as such, his classroom was filled with them in every nook and cranny. He even helped, the grounds crew to maintain flowers and hedges around the school. For Mr. Lakes, it was impossible to teach biology out of a book. You needed, life. You needed to, show plants, to have plants around. You needed to see how diverse and interesting they all could be, how photosynthesis worked in practice. But then one day, the school where Mr. Lakes had taught for 12 years closed. The kids would have to go to the school in the next county where they did not, it turns out, need a new biology teacher. What happens to Mr. Lakes? All those plants? Well, that is for tomorrow on Biology 101 Fun. No, it's something better than that, I promise. Thanks for watching and/or listening. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.